Now let's take a look how we can change the theme in our application. Here on the Ionic documentation, under guides, and if you scroll down to theming, here on basics, there is a list of all the default colors that comes with Ionic. And there are 9 default colors, and each of them comes with a shade and a tint version of it, which is used throughout the application. Now, to change your colors, Ionic make it very easy with the use of CSS variables. And if you go to color generator, they provide us with this nice tool that you can just add your colors and it will generate the variables for us for each of those colors. Now, I like to use a tool called encyclopedia.com, and here you can just add some colors and you can find more information about them. Also, you can just do a quick search for color palettes, and you can find tools like this colors.co with a pre-configured color palettes. Now I've chosen already some colors, and I'm gonna use it here on the color generator. Just gonna enter there. I'm just gonna change the primary and the secondary. And then I'm gonna copy it in here. This is the color palette that was created. You can copy all of them if you change them. And back in our code, the CSS variables are here under theme, and then there's a variables. I'm just gonna change these 2 first ones, that is the colors that I picked. And that will be available throughout my application. Now, to change your colors, let's first run the server. Now in our application, it already picked up the color that I changed. So let's change a few things. The icon, so we can see how we can apply those colors in our application. So I'm gonna go to the app component.html, and here on the icon, I'm gonna add a property called color, and then you can use the names of the variables: primary, secondary, tertiary, success, warnings, and so on. Now if I save this and back on my application, the icons got changed. So now let's change something else, and you see which other ways we can add colors to our application. I'm gonna go to my home page and change the color of this button. Here my home page, where I'd use the color here on the icon. So in order to change the button inside our CSS file, we need to add the component name. And before we do that, let's take a look at the documentation. If you choose a component like the Ion button, and if you scroll all the way down to the page, here are all the CSS properties that is available for that particular component. Some components has more, some has only a few, but mainly they will have a color and a background. So the color is for the text and the background. Let's change the background. Back in our code, you can change just like this, and then we call var, and you pass the property that we want to change. So Ion color, secondary. Back in my application, now it changed. If I want to change the color of the text, I would use color var Now to add CSS variables, you always need to add these 2 dashes for the var, and then you add your color names. Now if I save, now the color has changed. So for each component, it will have some CSS. If you take a look at the card as well, here you can only change the background and the color, but you can take a look whenever using a component to see. Just remember that you need to add the dash dash over here because this is a custom color, the custom property on this component. If you were to change H1, for example, let's change this paragraph here. So P, it's gonna add the primary color in there, but this time I do not need the dash dash because this is a property that you can set on any HTML component. So back on our page, there we go. Now, if you're going to change something in your application that you want every component to have that style, you can do that by adding it into the root, or you can set in the global CSS file. If you're doing something regarding the Ionic framework, you do in root. If you have your own custom CSS, you do it in the globals. So let's see, let's change the background color for the application. So we can do that with Ion background color. And this will set for the whole application. So I'm just gonna put a color over here. And if you're using VS Code, you can also use the pop-out color picker. So you can change the colors straight inside the VS Code and find some colors as well. Now when we reload, you can see that the color is changed for the background and it applied to the whole application. You can also add custom font as well, and this all you can find it in the documentation under theming. You also have platform styles, which you can set for material design or iOS, different classes. And under CSS variables, you have a few variables that you can set, like we did the background color. You can change the font family, and here is how you would set up the different colors for the particular platform you want to set. Now we have 9 colors here on the root. If you want to add a new one, you can just create a top level class over here. Let's say I'm gonna do an Ion color. I'm gonna call it Nico, and we're gonna use that color. This will be a custom color. Now you need to follow this pattern in here for the naming. .ion color, and then you add the name of your color. And here we're gonna have an --ion color base, and then RGB ion color contrast, and contrast RGB, then ion color shade, and a tint. Now, if you want to set your own colors, you definitely need to use this pattern over here, and you can find more about it here under advanced. And if you scroll down a bit, here's how you set adding new colors, which is the class, and then you follow this pattern, ion color base. And to get your own colors, you just go back, pick a color, and then go back to the color generator, paste anywhere there, and then you can just copy those colors from here. So because this is gonna auto generate contrast color, the RGB, it's gonna calculate the shade and the tint for you. So try to use this so you can have a match on all of the colors. And then back here you can just paste in there and, well, change that. So I've made it before, and here are the changes. Now to use after you create this one, you can just go back to the page and use as a color, because that's going to be a top level color, so you can just call it nickel or whichever name you gave to it. Let's go back to home page, and now it has changed in there the color for nickel. So Ionic makes it really nice and easy to change the theme. If you work with something like Angular material before, it's quite annoying to change all the components. You need to dig in to change each color in there, and it's quite a mess. I don't really like this way. I think it's really cool to do it. So pick your colors, change your items, add some colors, and let's get going.